What they generally do is send us out to the edge of the operation area, usually along the border or out to the edge there. And basically, our mission was go out to this area, look for the enemy. If you find them, kill them. If you can't kill them, or if there are too many, call us and we'll try to come help you. So that was fundamentally the way we did business, which was pretty unstructured. You didn't, in Iraq, if you were taking a helicopter from A to Z, they had to plan a route and they couldn't deviate from that route and so forth. In Vietnam, uh, your mission order might be about that much, a grid coordinate and a radio frequency, and you just figure I'm here, I got to get there. We'd call artillery, find out where the artillery was shooting, and we were always shooting a lot of it. And then in Vietnam, you go under it, over it, around it, and it's left. Pilots are pretty smart guys, so we figure our way how to get through that stuff, and we get there the best way we could, and then we look for the enemy, and if we found them, we try to kill them, and if we, if there were more of them, than we could handle, we call for help. They bring out the assault companies with the infantry.
Were you part of these teams? I've learned about these teams where the loaches will go out and get real low and find enemy.
Hunter killer team, yeah.
The hunter killer teams, and then the Cobras will come in.
Yeah.
Were you involved in that kind of thing?
Well, that's what I was in a cavalry troop. I was assigned to the lift section, but I flew a lot with my best friend Jim Newman, who that's what he did every day. I did it as often as I could with him. I fly as his co-pilot. I've flown the Loach and I've flown the Cobra, but mostly I flew the slicks, and so I've done a little bit of all of it, but I put more time in slicks than anything else. Second to that, the Cobra, and somebody shot at me every time I ever got in a Loach, so I finally gave that up.
How is the mission different when you're in operations in the slick and when you're in operations in the Cobra? How is the mission different?
In the Cobra, all you do is drive around and look for the enemy. If you can find them, shoot them. Mostly the Loaches are finding them and you're shooting. He'll sometimes you can see them, and sometimes you see the smoke that the Loach dropped, and then you dive in, and as you get closer, a lot of times you can see them. But it's all quick and violent. But with the slick, we did everything. Anything anybody could think up, we did. We had a platoon that we moved around. We do blocking actions, and we search bunkers, that sort of thing. But we did the Night Hunter, which was an interesting mission. I've flown Night Hunter. You had a slick that would fly down creeks, rivers at about 400 feet, and you had snipers with starlight scopes, and you're looking for sampans. We usually do it up on the Cambodian border. We take the pilot doors off so you could lean out and look, and usually you could see the sampans with a naked eye, and we'd light up a sampan, and then you'd have two blacked out Cobras behind you. So it looks like on the ground, it looks like a single helicopter coming. We leave the rotating beacon flashing, but turn all the rest of the lights off. So it gives a deceptive appearance. You got shot at fairly often, but you rarely got hit, or you took really relatively few hits for the amount of bullets that came up. And then, but when they shot at you, or when you marked them with your machine guns and tracers, then the Cobra behind you, the low one, would put his nose down and he'd salvo rockets in on a sampan. And it's hard to sink a sampan with a machine gun, but the Cobras with rockets would do a pretty good job. So I flew that mission a lot. And one night, Jim and I we sank almost 24 sampans one night from the Cobra. There were so many sampans, we were shooting two at a time. And these were all just coming across the Cambodian border. Supplies, and we didn't clean body count because we couldn't see well enough. But there's a curfew, and we're you know, 30, 40 kilometers from any village, and here comes a whole convoy out of Cambodia,
Sure.
sampans. So I never had any misgivings about what we were doing there.
So you know that when you're taking out these sampans that are coming from that area, you're taking supplies from the enemy, which then relates to the next question I had. Um, you're in the air, so I'm assuming in the Huey, sometimes you're doing insertion and extraction, medevacs, just the wide range of
Yeah.
vehicles. So what was your kind of your psychological relationship with the soldiers on the ground there? I mean, you know, where were
It,
you in relation to them?
well, we frequently supported everything from LERPs to infantry companies. But it was an unbreakable bond or sense of responsibility. You know, you wanted to help them, you wanted to keep them out of trouble, you wanted to protect them, and we do whatever we had to do that. So I guess a sense of responsibility is, you know, if they were under us, then we were going to try to help them.
I wonder if you could say something about the LERPs. You know, we hear about these guys who are, there weren't, I don't think there are a whole lot of them. Somewhat mysterious, these guys out there. What memories do you have of of working with the LERPs?
I the best, I mean, the most exciting times I had were working with LERPs, either pulling them out, putting them in. Usually the excitement was pulling them out because you put them in, if they were detected when you put them in, you try to pick them right back up. But usually you put them out and then they would sneak and peek. You remember their job was to see and to hear and to live to tell about it. And they called artillery. Sometimes they take a prisoner. But when you went back out to pick them up, you would just know within a kilometer or so where they were. You wouldn't know where they were. And you just get out over the area and then make a call. And they would be listening. So they try not to talk too much. And they would go turn left, turn right. And then just before you were over them, or when you got over them, they'd say, you know, come in from the south, don't go on the north side, you'll get shot. And then they would pop smoke. And then you go through this drill of the enemies listening to your transmissions. And frequently they'd pop a smoke and the enemy would pop smokes in different places. So when you were turning around, descending, going in to pick them up, you'd see multiple smokes. And then you have to go back through the thing. I've got a red and two purples, or you know, something. And if they were one of the purples, they'd say pop and smoke. You wouldn't say they duplicated, so you just say pop and smoke, and they throw another color. And then two more colors would come out, sometimes three. And anyway, you'd figure out where they were, and then you zoom in and grab them, and sometimes they'd be running. You know, I mean, they wouldn't be in the same place. So it was high drama, you know, but we always got them out.
So you have cases where LERPs are actually, the LERPs have the NVA on their heels.
Yeah,
And
they're being chased.
you're picking them up on the run.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're. I I rarely saw, you know, what would happen if they were being chased. They'd be running, and our Cobra and Scout. I'd usually have, sometimes I have two Cobras. If it was night, I'd just have two Cobras, no Scout. If it was daytime, I'd have one or two Cobras and a Scout. So the Scout's in there behind them looking for the enemy, and they're trying to attack the enemy who are chasing the LERPs, and I'm trying to get LERPs out with my slick. So that was some of the most exciting things we did.
After Tet, the Viet Cong are devastated in the months following Tet. And it sounds like you know you're dealing with Viet Cong, but it sounds like you're dealing primarily with NVA. Is that right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
time.
We continue to kill Viet Cong through the rest of the year I was there, but we were killing far more NVA than we were Viet Cong.
What was your assessment of the NVA as an adversary?
They were, you know, I respected them. I mean, they were good soldiers, very disciplined, good shots, a lot of times, or some of them could shoot anyway. They weren't good wing shots. So if you were moving, they would have trouble hitting you typically. But very disciplined, and they could move around a battlefield. I don't know how they did it, but they were, it was almost like, I don't know, if you had an American unit, a Viet Cong, or a NVA unit run together, typically the NVA could wrap around. I mean, they were fluid. I mean, they were really good, well-disciplined soldiers, and they didn't give up. I mean, we took. I mean, this sounds crass, but we didn't take many prisoners. Not because we wouldn't have taken prisoners, but about the only prisoners we took were wounded that couldn't get away any other way, because they'd fight you till they couldn't.
Did you have many operations with ARVN forces? Did you have much interaction with ARVN forces at all?
First 2 or 3 times I got shot at were by ARVNs.
That's right. I want to ask you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So what you get the first time you got shot at by ARVN forces.
yeah, and they were just, I almost would say playing. We were flying cross country at 1,500 feet. 2 or 3 tracers come up. They're not really trying to shoot you down. I don't know what they're doing, but just boredom. But they would pop a few rounds at you when you were going by, and that was just considered normal. But the ARVNs, they're riding the fence. They are survivors. The first thing they're going to do is survive, and I mean, but they're also. I mean, I could give you some examples. One time we had a mission where they had a regiment identified. I think Mercs identified them or something. And they were in this location. And so the next morning, we're going to go in there with guns blazing, and we're going to get them. So it was a whole brigade was going to come in, and I heard it when they said, and the ARVN brigade is going to stop this side, and the American brigade is going to get this side, and the Cavs going to push them around here or there. So anyway, as soon as I heard ARVN brigade, I turned around to a buddy and said, they're going to be gone. If the ARVN brigade has got this order, and sure enough, the only thing we had left in there the next morning was snipers who were killing our guys, but there weren't any big. There was no big number. I think we killed a dozen all day, and so that's kind of a slow day if you got a regiment that you're fighting. Another time, I got in a fight with an NVA. I was flying in a Loach that day with another good friend who turned out to be a lot crazier than I thought he was. But we were flying a Loach, and we found what we could identify of it was an NVA platoon. And we got in a fight with, just the 2 of us got in a fight with this NVA platoon, and we were running around shooting, throwing grenades out the door. I mean, it was about an hour of really hard going. And after, I don't know, it seemed like an hour. I don't know if it was less time than that. But anyway, at one point, I was flying as the observer. I had a little submachine gun in my hand, and we were going, and I saw this guy run underneath. We were going back in where the main bunch of them were, and this guy ran underneath, and I leaned out the door to shoot him, and the pilot said, "Don't shoot, don't shoot. I think that's an ARVN." And I looked, and yep, it was an ARVN. We were at maybe 30 feet, 50 feet, something, right in the treetops. So this guy runs out, and it was an ARVN. I look, and there's an ARVN outpost over here about 500, 600, 800 meters. There's a little ARVN outpost. So this guy is running from the NVA position to the ARVN place. So, which, I've often thought, that the 2 groups were coordinating somehow. So that's an anecdotal. That's an anecdotal example of where I thought they were passing information.
This is that story where the Loach pilot just keeps bringing you around and around and around, right?
Yeah,
These
yeah.
NVA. But meantime, you've got these ARVN guys who are right there not doing anything to help
No, never fired a shot. They were not helping us.
and
And
perhaps even coordinating with the NVA.
yeah, well, this guy was running from where the NVA were with an ARVN uniform on back to the little ARVN compound, and the two of them were no more than 600-800 meters apart. All the NVA platoon we found were in a farmhouse, or some of them were in a red tile farmhouse that was, and they had apparently come in on boats because we found their sampans. They a lot of times they'll sink the sampan and they'll be underwater. You can't see them horizontally, but if you get right over them, you can see the sampan down in the water. So they came in sampans under the noses of the NVA. This is when they were moving the 9th Division up from the Delta and turning it over to the ARVNs. And it appeared that the ARVNs, that the NVA were moving right in behind the American division that was moving out.
I'm putting, together in my mind. It's interesting. You say the ARVN, they wanted to survive. A minute before, you were talking about these NVA. You didn't take very many prisoners because they would fight to the death.
Yeah.
As I put those two thoughts together, so then it makes perfect sense why the North won that war. The
Yeah.
US is
Well,
going to stay in this war forever, and if the ARVN aren't committed, but the NBA obviously are, it's
and if we take the North off limits, we're not going. If I'd been king, I would have done what we did in Desert Storm. I would have moved an amphibious task force off of North Vietnam and threatened to invade, made noises like I was going to invade. Then I'd have cleaned up the South. And I don't know. It's like to me, it was like playing football, and they're playing soccer, and they don't have to stay inside the boundary lines. We have a lot of meetings and have these little set missions, and they're just running all over the place. That's why the air cavalry was so. That's why the air cavalry was so effective. Is we were unstructured. We were the only unstructured. I mean, there probably were others, but we were unstructured, and we were just running all over the place, and we'd find a lot of them and kill them. But most of the army was doing, 5-paragraph mission order. We're going to put them in here, and they're going to walk to here, and we're going to distract them over here. So, they had. My experience was we were taking a lot of casualties from our ground forces on booby traps and ambushes. When they get ambushed, or they just step on booby traps, and you keep medevacs going all day long, hauling wounded soldiers out. In the meantime, we're just running around, killing 2 or 3 here, half a dozen there. We'd average 10 to 20 a day on average. Good day we killed 30 some, and some on a big day, we might do 50 or 60, but mostly, we're staying around 3 to 4, 500 a month was for the numbers. I kept a lot of notes when I was there, and so that's how I kept up with that.
Did it seem, when as these numbers are racking up, and you can see that for all the casualties we're taking, they're taking a lot more. And it kind of makes sense, the whole war of attrition idea, it kind of makes sense that they're not going to be able to, continue to absorb these casualties. But apparently they were willing to absorb as many casualties as they were going to take to just persist.
Well, you remember the Ho Chi Minh said, you can kill 10 of ours for every one we kill of yours because you'll tire of it first. And he was right. We had a strong anti-war movement, and we saw some of that again in Iraq. I hated to see it. I'd love to think the nation was behind us when we're downrange doing dangerous stuff. We're in the business of killing the enemy. And if you're raised in a normal, or I say normal, my normal was I was raised in a family that went to church every Sunday and killing's bad and so forth. But when you're when you're waist deep in a war and you're around killing and death every day, you have to rationalize that somehow. I only had one or two incidents where I was involved in killing somebody that I felt that I had misgivings about. And I tried to kill a guy one time that was unarmed, but I didn't know that. And he reached behind him. I was trying to take a prisoner, and he reached behind him. And I mean, I'm vulnerable right at that moment. I'm standing or I'm sitting in my helicopter, and he's 15 feet from me, and he has his hands up. We had to shoot to make him stop. And he puts his hand and reaches around in the small of his back, and told the door gunner to shoot him. And the door gunner didn't understand me. And I tried to kill him with a rotor blade. I mean, I thought we were fixing to get a grenade in this helicopter or something. I mean, it's tense. It's a tense moment, and you can make mistakes in a tense moment. If I'd killed him, it would have been a mistake because the guy was unarmed, and I felt bad about that. And he's lucky to be alive. And I had another one that I told the door gunner to shoot, who probably was an enemy soldier, but turned out not to have a gun, on him. And I've always felt bad about that. But by and large, I was talking to one of the scout pilots at one of our last reunions. By and large, we can sleep at night because we didn't kill women and children. We didn't kill unarmed men. We killed people that had AK-47s and were trying to kill us. So you know, we can sleep at night, but we did kill a lot of people, and you kind of have to rationalize that in the mindset of we're over here doing this, and if we can kill enough of them, they'll quit fighting.
When you think about your service in Vietnam and then your service in Iraq, the scenario I often give veterans is, tomorrow for some reason, all of your memories of those tours are going to be taken away from you, except for one or two. You can hold on to one or two memories from your time of service. And usually when I'm talking to the veteran has served only in Vietnam or only in Iraq. So, in your case, it's more complicated because you were in both, although in very different circumstances. A warrant officer, helicopter pilot in Vietnam, now a one-star general in Iraq. So very different worlds. But if we play that scenario out, that 24 hours from now, all of your memories of Vietnam, Iraq will be gone, except for one or two. What are the memories you think you would hold on to?
Boy, that's like saying which of your friends are you going to forget. But the best memories are with the people I served with. I mean, I did a lot of stuff, you know, um, you know, commanded a lot of people in Iraq, but even in Iraq, where I was, at at some point I had over 10,000 uh, or close to 10,000 Iraqis that I was responsible for in uniform, armed men, plus my brigade. So it's a lot of stuff. But the memories you have are of the people you're with. It's of the soldiers that I was around every day. My chaplain who was ended up not a lot of people you can talk to when you're commanding. If you want to just say, "Gosh, I got this problem," and but not on a religious basis, but just as a friend. So those are the people that I think of when I think of that, not how much power I had or I mean there were some pretty heady things, but Vietnam or now it's the people I was with.